Hello guys and gals and welcome to another episode of Legendary Aspects. Today we're going to be going over one of the new legendary aspects that's been added into the game. It's a pretty ridiculously powerful one. It's called the Juggernaut aspect. The Juggernaut aspect can go on, well, pretty much any of the normal stuff that you would put defensive aspects on, your helmet, your armor, your pants. You can also throw it on an amulet slot. It's kind of insane when you throw it on an amulet slot, to be perfectly honest. What is the Juggernaut's aspect to? Well, it's really simple. It gives you a pretty massive chunk of armor for a penalty. The developers call this kind of stuff Kiss Curse. Kiss Curse is where they basically give you a nice boon, but at the same time as the boon, they give you a pretty big negative. And, well, let's take a look at what that negative is, as well as the positive. So as you can see here, we have a very nice amount of armor from 3,964 to 5,929. And when you have this aspect is pretty insane when you throw it on an amulet too. Let's just as a meme here. As you can see here, up to 8,894 defense, which is just insane. Just an insane level of defense. Move over Disobedience, because Disobedience is basically garbage at this point. And I wouldn't even use Disobedience anymore, not with this aspect in play. And the reason for this is because there's a couple of reasons. First off, Disobedience isn't always active. Disobedience's main issue is that, well, it just doesn't always stay active. And sometimes it's very difficult to maintain the stacks depending on what's going on. And if the stacks fall off for any particular reason, then you're now vulnerable. This particular aspect, always active, as long as you're outside of town. And this is something that's important to note. I currently have mine on right now, which is 5,143, but as you can see, it's not actually on my bar. If you're in town, it doesn't show up. However, as soon as you walk outside of town, the moment that your character breaches the border of outside of townness, you should see it just suddenly add to the bar. Bam. Just like that. See? 12,667. Bam, 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 bam. A lot of things like this actually don't work unless you're in outside of town. Now, the negative on this is that it gives you a pretty massive bump to your cooldown on your evade. So my evade right now is currently 8 seconds. And if I take off the Juggernauts, my cooldown on my evade should only be 4 seconds. So as you can see, 4 seconds as opposed to 8. It doubles the cooldown of your evade, but gives you a pretty nice bump in your defensive capability. Now, 12,667 is pretty close to what I need already. On top of this, one of the things that we've noticed is that when you have bonuses like 21.8% bonus to armor, it actually does affect the amount that Juggernaut is giving you. So I'm actually getting more than what it states. So let me actually add this up here real quick. So it's currently giving me, and let's pull this up on a calculator. I have 3,686, right? So plus the 5,143. So plus 5,143 is 8,829. I'm also getting 1,575 from this, so 1,575. And then on top of that, I'm also getting the 21.8% bonus, so 21.8%, which brings me up to 12,672. 12,667. So a little off on my calculation there by a couple points, but as you can see there, it actually is giving me the bonus to the entire set, not just the base, which is pretty insane, to be perfectly honest. On top of that, you really don't need much more than 12,667. As you can see, I'm already at the 85% damage reduction cap from physical damage. However, if I was in, say, a 100 Nightmare Dungeon, I believe you need around like 13,800 something, or let's just round it off to 14k. But I'm pretty darn close to that 14k to get that 85% damage reduction in a tier 100 Nightmare Dungeon. So, very, very effective. It's always on. I don't have to worry about building stacks. Yes, I lose a little bit of my evade cooldowns, but quite honestly, if you have the 4 evades, you could sit there and spam your evades for the most part and literally just let them regenerate on their own. It's really not that big of a deal. I don't really even notice it for the most part, the kiss curse thing. I think it is a solid trade off, especially for characters that have a lot of issues building armor. Maybe not necessarily for barbarians, because barbarians don't really have the biggest issue building armor. But if you're like a druid, a necromancer, a sorceress, a rogue, etc., and you don't have an easy time building armor, this is actually insane. It's insane, especially if you have an armor mod on your armor mod on your pants, and then you have the Juggernaut. It's going to just like balloon out your armor tremendously. I could have, for instance, the 29.2 and then another 29.2 bonus between my armor and my pants. And then I can't remember if you can have it on your helmet too, but you could very easily breach the 14,000 cap for 100 Nightmare Dungeons without any issue whatsoever. Great addition to the game, honestly, because it's a very easy way for characters to beef up their physical damage reduction. Although, do keep in mind that it only increases your physical damage reduction. Armor is not going to increase your elemental damage reduction. They separated that out in the patches before, so make sure you're getting your resistances set up. As you can see, this character doesn't have her resistances set up. She's still low on poison and low on shadow, which is, of course, not very helpful for her. All in all, absolutely excellent. I don't know if I would ever put it on an amulet. I think it's already overkill as it is, especially if you have the 2 armor mods on your, like I said, on your armor and your pants. You don't even really need it. And as you can see, even without the armor mod on my pants, I'm already sitting at a pretty decent level of armor. 12,000 armor is not bad. I'm actually close to 13k. So having nearly 13,000 armor while I'm using Tibolts, while I'm using friggin' Frosties, Beastfall boots, and Melted Heart of Saleg, so I basically have like no additional armor modifiers. So having nearly 13,000 armor with just the Juggernauts and 1 armor mod that's not even perfectly capped out either. If it was 29.2%, I probably would be a lot closer to that 14,000 cap. And just insane. Absolutely insane. If you're not using Juggernauts, give it a try. If you're still using Disobedience, why are you still using Disobedience? Disobedience, I don't even think is worth it anymore, to be perfectly honest. I feel like Disobedience is, without a doubt, the inferior version at this point, because Disobedience, like I said before, number 1, only works when you have the stacks. Number 2, the stacks can fall off. Number 3, you can die during that time when the stacks fall off. Number 4, the stacks are janky in the way that they grow and fall off because they don't refresh. They constantly, you build them and then they fall off and then you have to build them again and you can't refresh them. So you could potentially build all 60 stacks immediately and then have all 60 stacks fall off at the same time at just the wrong moment, and then I'm getting one shot. Whereas this is permanently active all the time, and I just don't really see the need for this anymore. I mean, yes, you can run both. If you're that desperate for armor and you want to run both, then run both. But in my personal opinion, you don't need to. You'd be better off with some damage reduction at this point. Once you have this one and a couple good armor mods, you're set. And then you can run, say, the Aspect of Might, Snowguard's Veil. There's a lot of other damage reduction modifiers out there, aspects that would be, I think, better than Disobedience at that point, because your armor will already be where it needs to be. And as you can see here, running a ridiculously large number of uniques like I am, and then still being very close to the armor cap is insane. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when we're just talking about the Juggernauts aspect. And as always, keep watching.